Long ago in 1960, Nintendo used to be in the toy-making business. Before the great birth of video games, before the amazing NES Zapper, and well before Mario, Nintendo was known as a company that would make innovative toys. The plan for this video is not to go through the whole history of Nintendo, starting from the beginning where they were making cards, but instead to examine in detail a very strange period between the mid-1960s and about 1972. Because it was in 1965 that Nintendo hired a man named Gunpei Yokoi. His job was to maintain assembly line machines that they were currently using to produce their Hanafuda cards. Little did they realize, however, that this man would go on to not only be the father of the Game & Watch, but forever change the trajectory of Nintendo going forward. The sources for today's video will be linked in the description below. Now, Mr. Yokoi was a very innovative man. He came up with a lot of ideas and saw different ways to put a Nintendo spin on existing technology. The Game & Watch was created through him observing a man playing around with a calculator on a train. The calculator would be the same technology used for the very first Game & Watches. He explained his way of thinking by calling it lateral thinking of withered technology. The Nintendo way of adapting technology is not to look for the state of the art, but to utilize mature technology that can be mass-produced cheaply. This meant that Mr. Yokoi was always looking around for existing toy products that he could put this fresh Nintendo spin on. And one of the products that caught his eye in the late 1960s was none other than Lego. Lego was established in the workshop of Ole Kirk Christensen, a carpenter from Denmark who made wooden toys in 1932. It was in 1947 that Lego began producing its first plastic toys, which was when in 1949 an early version of its own interlocking brick toy was developed. These at the time were called automatic binding bricks. Now I say its own version of interlocking bricks because the earliest interlocking brick toy I could find were from a company called Elgo. Elgo was the name of both founders, Elliot and Goss, put together. No, I'm not making this up, and this is by far one of the strangest coincidences I've ever come across when it comes to investigating toy history. The product was known as American Plastic Bricks. It was introduced in the late 30s, and it predates the Lego introduction of the interlocking brick toy by about 10 years. Although Lego's version of the bricks were very much based on the Kittycraft interlocking bricks, which were made in the UK in 1945. Here are some quick images to show you the early designs of the Kittycraft bricks, and we can see definitely they share some heavy resemblance with the Lego sets that we are very familiar with, so it's important for us to see where Lego got its inspirations from. It's all a very fascinating and strange part of toy history. But anyways, the important thing to remember is that all these bricks that I've been showing you on the screen so far differ from the modern day bricks that we are used to, as they did not at the time contain the familiar internal tube structure that enables the bricks to stack easily. This means that the ability to create different objects with these blocks was pretty limited. Gottfred, who was Lego founder Christensen's son, was the driving force behind recognizing Lego's potential at becoming a system for creative play, as well as recognizing the technical limitation of its current locking ability. In 1958, the new design was established, which is the same design that we see today. Lego's motto was, and still is, only the best is good enough. It really emphasizes how Lego stressed creating a quality product. This will be relevant later in the video. In 1962, Lego had entered the Japanese market. This brings us back to late 1968, where Nintendo launched a range of brick building toys called N&B. These were also known as Nintendo blocks. Now, Nintendo blocks were copyrighted by Nintendo, and they did not receive any sort of license from Lego to produce this line of product. The standard 2x4 bricks that are commonly used in Lego sets are pretty much identical to those in Nintendo block sets, so much so that they are actually even interchangeable with Lego blocks. The heights, widths, and lengths are an exact copy. Obviously, as you can imagine, this creates some legal issues, so the internal design of the blocks were modified to prevent them from being seen as an exact clone, as well as the little NMB icon had been added to the molds in the exact same manner that LEGO does. It's clear Nintendo had taken a heavy amount of what you could almost stretch to call inspiration at this point from LEGO, but what we haven't covered so far is where the classic Nintendo spin had come into play. At this point in time, LEGO wasn't particularly innovative with its designs. Most of the blocks it produced were in 1x2, 2x2, or 4x2, a format which made LEGO's sets look very blocky and dated. Doors, windows, and wheels were something that LEGO did include in its sets in 1968, but that's about it when it came to different styles of blocks. On screen now, you're going to see a few different LEGO sets from 1968 to give you a rough idea of what they used to offer. Ideas like a boat, a plane, a house. And notably, LEGO only offered 5 different colors of blocks: yellow, red, blue, white, and black. This is the weakness that Nintendo planned to exploit in order to be able to enter the market. Nintendo offered 10 different colors of blocks, most notably gold and silver. This made Nintendo sets at the time look substantially more colorful than LEGO's, which would only commonly be seen in red and white. And more importantly, Nintendo blocks offered a wide variety of shapes. This might not be something that we look at with much interest today, but at the time, this was massive. LEGO did not originally have any of these cylindrical shapes. You can see here a full range of the shapes offered by Nintendo blocks. It's crazy to see, as many of these we are likely familiar with from seeing them in LEGO sets today. But in fact, these pieces and these shapes were a brainchild of Nintendo's innovation. With all these new shapes, it was easier for Nintendo to advertise a bunch of design options, or things that you could try to build with their product. This was their strategy when they were trying to break into the market and differentiate themselves from LEGO. With Nintendo blocks, you could easily build things ranging from flowers, to binoculars, to even a gun. Things that weren't quite possible with the current range of LEGO products. But it didn't stop there. Nintendo wasn't pulling any punches with their advertisements either. There were several commercials that aired in the late 60s, which unfortunately I couldn't locate the originals to show you. But I can show you 2 images that will pretty much convey all you need to know about Nintendo's advertising strategy. In the first image, you're going to see a LEGO rocket on the left, and a Nintendo Blocks rocket on the right. Even though this doesn't explicitly show any LEGO branding on it, it is pretty obvious what is implied here. It shows, quite clearly in one image, the build limitations of LEGO's current range of blocks, and how Nintendo Blocks just simply does it better. The next image shows a kid on the left looking very jealous and unhappy as the commercial discusses how Nintendo Blocks are clearly more fun, with the kid on the right smiling joyfully in front of his much more realistic looking rocket. There's little doubt that this didn't at least help fuel LEGO's discontent with Nintendo, which eventually ended up in a lawsuit. Not much is known here, unfortunately, as it's lost to time, but what we do know is that Nintendo did in fact win. This was because of a few things. The internal design, even though it was clearly based on LEGO's tube system, was different enough not to be considered a copyright infringement, as well as the fact that at the time Nintendo were offering circular shapes that were uniquely their own. I did look around for more information about the topic, but all I managed to find out was that Nintendo continued to sell the NMB product line till about 1972, and Gunpei Yokoi was heavily involved all the way through, with several patents listed in his name. Many people have speculated as to why Nintendo discontinued the product line that they had so clearly invested heavily into, with the 3 emerging theories being the following. Theory number 1 is that LEGO was threatening more lawsuits. It's definitely something that would have deterred Nintendo, who were at the time a much smaller company than LEGO. Getting buried in legal fees over the Nintendo block product line is probably something that Nintendo didn't look at as something that would have a bright future. They were going to constantly be ending up in court again and again and again. Theory number 2 is that the product line simply just wasn't profitable. It's unknown how well this line of products actually sold, we don't have numbers to show, but there were many different shifts that Nintendo took from the 60s to the 70s, and this means that they could have possibly just found other avenues that they saw were more profitable and wanted to expend their resources on instead. Theory number 3 is that the manufacturing process from Nintendo wasn't able to compete with that of Legos, as there were tolerance issues with the product. What manufacturing tolerance refers to is the leeway permitted between the design and the actual finished product. This is super important when we're talking about a building brick product, because if products are coming out and blocks are coming out at constantly varying dimensions, even if it's by a tiny amount, it causes issues with the bricks either being able to stick to each other or the bricks not being able to release from each other very easily, giving an overall poor feel to the product. This is why we discussed LEGO's motto earlier of always striving for the best quality. It's very possible that this just meant that Nintendo was unable to compete, as their bricks overall just didn't match up well with Legos. Personally, I think there were a lot of factors that were probably involved in Nintendo's decision to discontinue the line. They had recently gotten into a partnership with Sharp, and they had been delving into the idea of light guns, in combination with an exciting period of time where video games were moving from being a concept to an actual reality. Definitely played a large role in where the company's resources and time were being allocated. Nowadays, we can see that LEGO and Nintendo have clearly mended bridges, with the widely popular LEGO series of games being released onto Nintendo consoles, as well as some awesome LEGO sets, with my personal favorite being the Super Mario NES set that honestly was pretty mind-blowing to see when I saw the Nintendo commercial for that. It's very hard to argue that that's not an amazing looking product. That's been it for today's video. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and there will be a channel update video in about 10 days' time. If you have any constructive feedback, then please leave that in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.